Good morning, everyone. Trish Triumpho Sullivan here, and today we're going to talk about assignment number 4, which is mimetic sets. This assignment is going to be 2 images, so don't turn in more than 2 images. One from nature and one that's urban or a cityscape, right? So one like natural landscape and one cityscape or urban photograph. So these are 2 things that look alike or have the same meaning. So mimetic sets, mimetic means like to mimic, to copy something, right? So you're taking one thing that's from nature, say, and you're pairing it with something that's urban that either looks the same or has the same meaning. So let's get right to it, you guys. And once again, this is assignment number 4. Right, and it's 2 images. Right, so that's what we're working on today. So how is this going to work? Well, number 1 is you have to have an image from nature. That means the wild, okay? I don't mean you have to travel somewhere far away. You can find nature things close by. But there's some things that I've found in my classes that my students have assumed are natural. And sure, everything is natural in some way because everything on earth is here, it came from nature at some point. But what we're trying to do is pair up things from the wild, things that have no human interference. Okay, so what that means is that you need to go somewhere where there's no human interference. So a park, maybe. Locally here we have Toro Park, we have Pinnacles National Park, and we have a whole lot of beaches. Okay, so there's a lot of areas that you can go to that are a short drive or even a short walk away in some cases to where you are, and you're going to find something that is from nature that you can also find something in an urban environment that matches. So I'm going to give you a few examples, and we'll talk a little bit more about what you can do and what you can't do. Now, it's important for this assignment that you follow the instructions, okay? So I'm going to go over the instructions step by step, okay? But I want you guys to follow the instructions, and from this assignment on, you're also going to be asked to provide or to incorporate, I guess I should say, good composition, right, in your photographs. That means you're going to take the technical skills that you learned in the first 3 assignments, right, lighting and lighting types, focus and depth of field, and motion, where we learned about how to freeze motion or show motion blur, or a pan shot. So you're going to take all those first 3 assignments, all those technical skills, how to work your camera, and you're going to apply them to every photograph that you take from now on, along with good composition. Now, you've had the lecture on good composition, so hopefully you watched it and you took notes. Composition is important. The artistic and creative part of photography is just as important, if not more so, than the technical side. So the technical part is how to work your camera. The creative part is the composition and the imagination of what you're going to turn out, how it's going to turn out. So bear with me here, and I want you to be applying all these concepts to every photograph you take. So this means you have to have some what I call thoughtful composition. That means you need to think about it, okay? These aren't snapshots. You're not just taking your cell phone and going out and snapping photos here and there. You're taking your camera and you're going to adjust the controls to take a really good image. So that means lighting is important, focus and depth of field are important, as are motion if motion is involved. Not everything involves motion, obviously, right? So Let's talk about mimetic sets. So you're going to have two images, one from nature and one, make that look more like a one, and one urban. Okay, urban means from the city, right? So it's something that definitely has human interference in it, okay? Or human, maybe not interference, but something to do with human interaction, maybe. How's that? So nature has to be pure nature. Okay, so that means there's nothing in this one that can say that with anything that has anything to do with humans. Okay, so human made or anything. Okay, so what does that mean? So when I'm talking about this in class, my students normally will say, well, we'll come up with some things. So what are some things that might be a clue that humans have been there? Well, fences, right? What else? Trails, roads, power lines, what else can you think of? Power lines, roads, trail. How about cars? Airplanes? So all these might accidentally wind up in a photograph that you've taken in nature, okay? Because let's face it, humans are freaking everywhere and they've taken over the world. No, just kidding. So we've got things that you should not have in your nature photograph, and you can probably come up with some more things if you think about it. Some other things. Oh, here's one. You definitely don't want to see any trash, right? So these are the no things. No fences, no trails, no roads, no power lines, no cars, no airplanes, no trash, right? So these are no. Okay. Now, could these show up in the urban? Absolutely. Because all these things are things that we have in cities, right? We have fences, we have roads, power lines, cars, airplanes, and of course, unfortunately, plenty of trash. So these are things that you don't want to show in your nature photograph. And one thing that I want to make sure that we talk about in this is the format, right? How the format is oriented. And all format means, you guys, and I'm just going to write it down here. All format means is size and shape, right? When we talk about this in photography, we're talking about the size of the image, right? And how it's oriented usually. So in these, I want you to use either horizontal format, right? Or a vertical format. Right? So it's or. Right? So you do a horizontal, right, which we often call landscape. Or you do it vertical, which we often call portrait. Right? So they both photographs, the nature and the urban, have to be oriented or formatted the same way. So they're both horizontal or they're both vertical, right? So I don't want to see one horizontal and one vertical, okay? That's just not happening. for me. So this is how your format's going to be. You're going to have one nature photograph and one urban, and they're either both horizontal or both vertical. Okay? And so that's all format means. Format just means size and shape. So the formatting of this is going to be so they match, right? So they look, so the format looks the same in both of them. So in these ones, remember what we talked about. So mimetic sets is two things, right? One nature, one urban, that look alike, that look the same, or mean the same thing, right? They have the same meaning. Right. So two things that look alike or mean the same. Mean the same thing, how about that? Or have the same meaning, okay? So we're taking one photograph in nature and one photograph that's urban. And I showed you some examples, but frankly, the examples that I had on my computer at the time when we were doing the class, the Zoom class, I don't think were the best examples. So I want to really clarify what we want. I don't want you to be doing like a lot of stuffed animals and stuff like that. And so let's talk about what's nature and what is urban in this. So we've got what can you find in nature, right? You can find plants, animals, you can find like the earth, right? The earth in general, so dirt and rocks. What else? What else can we find in nature? Got plants, animals, earth, rocks, sky, right? We can see the sky. So that's pretty much the kind of things you can find in nature. The things you can find in urban environments, right? We already talked about some. We can find cars, buildings, what else? Roads, fences, and we can also find plants, animals, earth. I'm going to put rocks in quotes, and sky. All right, so we can find all these things in the urban environment too, but a lot of them have something to do with humans, right? So most of these are things that we're either planting, right? So like plants, we might have a garden, either an edible garden or just a ornamental garden around our homes or buildings. We have animals, right? We have domesticated animals. We have animals in our homes, such as dogs and cats and birds and fish. We have, all kinds of domesticated animals that basically can't live without us, right? And we have, say man-made rocks, such as like cement and pavers, things like that. So there's lots of different ideas that you can match up with these guys, okay? So let's talk about animals and let's talk about some examples here for the nature and urban. So in my years of teaching, I've had a lot of really good, really awesome, actually, submissions. Unfortunately, I don't have photographs of all of them anymore, just due to, not having the same computer and having files missing, that kind of thing. So in our examples, we'll start off with a pretty simple one. So let's say you go to the beach, okay? And in the beach, you see, you go to a tide pool, right? A little tide pool when the tide's out, and you can see some of the sea life. And in the tide pool, you see a starfish. Okay, so you take a photo of the starfish and you say, what can I match that up with in urban? And all of a sudden you're driving down the street and you see the sign for Carl's Jr., right? So there's Carl's Jr. sign, and guess what? It's got a star, right? So there you go. You've got your nature, right? No human interference in the ocean. And then you've got urban. You've got your star from, say, Carl's Jr., okay? The other thing you might find at the beach, and you guys, I want you to, I really want you to use your imagination with this. I don't want you to copy my examples. I want you to think. This is where you're using your mind and your creativity to come up with something fantastic that I'm not showing as an example, okay? So let's say you go to the beach, and this is one of the ones we showed you, and you see a seashell. Right? And then you go and you see the sign for Shell gas station. Right? Boom. There's your urban and there's your nature. Okay? The other thing, this is an example that I really liked a lot. I had a student that did this that I thought was pretty good. I had a student that did that matched something with seaweed. I'm not going to tell you what, because that might be something that you could do. You could take a photo of some seaweed at the beach, or any number of things, right, that are at the beach. But one of my students did something really cool that I've loved forever. They took a photo of a couple of those little birds that run back and forth into the waves. And here, we'll put the waves over here. And so they had this photo of these little birds that kind of run back and forth into the waves. And so they were at the beach, and they saw these little birds running back and forth and into the beach, and so into the waves, and they took a photo of these little birds. And then they went into town, and they saw a curb, right, like a gutter. Like, so here's the sidewalk over here, and then we've got the curb coming down with a gutter, and in the gutter was a little bit of water, right? And what did they find? They found a couple of pigeons, right? Pigeons are a little fatter. Kind of drinking the water in the gutter, right, in the curb. So they had two birds in each one, right? So it matches. They had two birds in the wild and two urban birds, right? Because pigeons are urban birds. They're not out in the wild. You don't go to the forest and see pigeons hanging out there. You don't go out to the Pinnacles or Toro Park and see pigeons hanging out, right? These are definitely urban birds, right? So in this case, you had something which I thought was a really good example. And let's see, what are some other good examples that I can give you? I had at one point, I had a student that had the good luck to photograph a coyote, right? So they were out in Fort Ord. We're like the Fort Ord National Monument, hiking around, and they let's see if I can do a little coyote here. And they managed to see a coyote and take a photograph of him. right? So they see the coyote in the wild. This is not the best coyote I've ever drawn. Here, we'll give him a little smile. He's a happy coyote, okay? And they took a photo of this coyote. Then they went into the city and they found a dog and they took a photo of a domesticated dog. Right? Not the best dog I ever drew either. So there you go. We got one in nature and one urban, okay? So you guys, domesticated animals are not in nature. That would be considered urban. So that would go for like chickens, turkeys. What else? What other domesticated animals? Sheep, cows, right? All these animals, plus probably many, many more, would be considered urban because they're domesticated, okay? So you're not going to see a cow in the wild. You're not going to see a sheep in the wild. Would you see a turkey in the wild? Yeah, guess what? There are wild turkeys. Sometimes we even see them in town. I saw some a couple years ago just hanging out right near downtown Salinas. They were just, running around. So you could get wild turkeys or a wild bird or any number of wild animals that you might be lucky enough to get a photograph of in the wild if you just went out and took a walk around a little bit. And you could match them up with something urban, right? So we have a coyote and then we have a dog. That makes sense? Okay, sweet. So let's go on. I'll give you a couple more examples. So I had one student that went to the beach, and I wish I still had her photographs because they were so good. So she saw this rock that was kind of, just like a big boulder, and there were a couple little boulders in front of it. And as soon as she saw that, she said, oh my gosh, I know exactly what I can match that up with. So she came into town and she looked for a specific type of car. Can you guess what type of car it was? Well, if you didn't guess, I'm going to tell you. Right? So she found a Volkswagen Bug, a Volkswagen Beetle. Right? And it looked a lot like the rock formation. Cool. So this is one of the reasons I want you guys to take your camera with you everywhere you go, because you never know when you're going to find that photograph where you're going to say, you're going to have that epiphany. Whoa, I know exactly what to match this up with for this mimetic set assignment. So if you can do that, if you can go take your camera with you and just start thinking, have that in your mind. What can I do that I can match up with to make a mimetic set? And have fun with it. Get creative, okay? Let's see, what else have I seen that I thought was a really good example? Well, you know what? Let's talk about how things, because we're talking right now about looking alike, but how about things that mean the same? So I had one student that took a photo of a house, right? They're a house, and then they took a photo of a bird's nest in the tree. So there was a little bird's nest, with twigs and stuff in it. So these don't look alike at all, right? The house and the bird's nest don't look alike, but they have the same meaning. They're both places where someone lives or something lives, right? So we've got a home for birds and a home for humans. Make sense? Right, so that's a good one. You guys are lucky because right now we have this, when this lecture is being recorded right now, it's 4th of July time during the summer, and there's a lot of fireworks. So you might find something in nature that kind of looks like a firework, right? And if you can get a picture of some fireworks, right? And most of you will have, on your camera, you'll have a slow shutter speed. If you want to capture fireworks, you want a slow shutter speed. Whoops. This is for fireworks, right? And if you have a point and shoot camera, you might have an icon for fireworks, right? My little fireworks. And all that means is it's a slow shutter speed. Okay, so slow shutter speed if you want to capture fireworks, and you might find something in nature that matches up to it. I'm not going to give you a hint as to what that might be, right? But there's some examples on our class website, right? www.photo1salinas.org. And then I gave you some examples here. I think it's pretty difficult because a lot of people have a hard time thinking about this creative part. Like they want me to tell them step by step on how to do this. But the fact is, this is for you guys to get creative with, not for me to tell you step by step. I'm giving you the basic instructions on it. Right? I'm telling you, you need one nature, one urban, right? They need to be formatted the same. Right, so the two photographs need to be either both horizontal or both vertical in format. And I want you to use your imagination. Get creative. Right? This isn't supposed to be a hard assignment. This is supposed to be a fun assignment where you can actually go out and start practicing with your camera on real life things. Okay? So use your imagination, get creative. Right? Have some fun with this. Okay? If you have questions, you know how to get in touch with me, and I'm happy to help. Right? Until the next lecture.